Does anybody not have voting papers who thinks they should have voting papers? Vice presidents don't vote, is that right? Rabbis do, vice presidents don't. If you're a rabbi and a vice president, you get a rabbi's vote, not a vice president's vote. That's what I said. So if you're a vice president and a rabbi, you get a rabbi's vote, not a vice president's vote. It's all right. You taught me how to be a civil servant, Rosita. I can be one now, you see. Officers, you should have one vote. Community representatives, you should have one collective vote, depending on the size of your community. Up to 7 if you're representing the LJS. Could be 1 if you're a very small community. I can see Northwood and Pinner's there with 5. Thank you. Who's got York's vote? Oh. Ros, do you want to... Chava Fleming is also a member of York. Is that the York vote or your vote? Oh, that's the York vote. Right, Chava, there's the York vote. Because Ros has a vote in her own right.
East London.
West Central. Yes. South London's vote. Are you holding that? Are you holding South London's vote?
I haven't got one yet.
Great, okay. Shelley will give it to you in just a second if you sit down.
West Central.
West Central over here.
Done. Shelley just said they're done.
Who's missing, Shelley? But we'll make sure... No, we'll just make sure it's very clear what's got to be done. Who? Let's see, who's not here. Crouch End. Is anybody from Crouch End? Crawley. Dublin. Anybody holding the Dublin vote? Charles, do you hold the Dublin vote? Oh, you have a rabbi's vote, right? Okay. Is the other person coming in from Dublin?
No, you're mentioned as Bill Proxy. Yeah.
Who else is missing? Gloucestershire vote. Who's holding the Gloucestershire vote?
Herefordshire.
Which one?
Herefordshire.
Herefordshire. Anybody holding that? Cahilla, North London. Where's Robin Sampson? They may come in yet. Kent. Anybody holding the Kent vote?
Elstree.
She's gone, I think. Elstree. Anybody holding the Elstree vote? Oh, so I've got it.
Huh? Lincolnshire.
Hang on, Davina, what's your other vote you've got?
She's got Leicester.
Why is she holding Leicester? At the end. Davina's got... Which 2 votes have you got? Oh, sorry. Thank you. Who? Leicester?
Lincolnshire, Manchester.
Lincolnshire, Manchester. Manchester vote, Phyllis, thank you. Herefordshire, Alison. Mosaic. Okay, so I'm afraid at the beginning of each vote, because people might come in late, we will have to announce the congregations that haven't yet picked up their voting card. Bedfordshire's gone. Bedfordshire's gone. Okay. Any officers or rabbis who don't have a vote now?
Okay.
Alison's got it already.
Okay.
Okay. Just before I ask the chairman formally opens the meeting, just to inform you that Robert Doolin, who's the chair in Southgate, has appointed Jane Greenfield as the proxy voter. Bill Glasman of Ealing has appointed Rabbi Janet Burden as the proxy voter. And Mimi Koenigsberg has appointed Leslie Moss as the proxy voter on behalf of Northwood and Pinner Liberal Synagogue. Those are the only 3 proxies formally notified to us. We're liberal about informal proxies where it seems appropriate. Annette Ray nominated Rabbi Aaron Goldstein. Is that agreed by the meeting? Thank you. Mr. Chairman.
Okay, first of all, it's a great pleasure to welcome so many to be at the AGM for LG. There's not normally this amount of people, so it's a wonderful experience. We have a few apologies for those who have been unable to join us this afternoon. Danny's got the list.
Mimi Königsberg, the chair of Northwood and Pinner Liberal Synagogue. Alan Solomon from Mosaic. Joan Shopper from Finchley. From a vice president, forgive me. Jeremy Friedman, a vice president. Louise Friedman, a vice president. Stuart MacDonald, the LJ representative of the Board of Deputies. Bob Kamal from the East London and Essex Liberal Synagogue. Lucian Hudson, vice president. Janet Berkman from Peterborough. I'm doing this, none of these congregations are listed. So, Bill Glassman, the chair of Ealing, and Peter Gordon from Nottingham. Those, Ed Herman. Ed Herman is apparently in Australia.
That's no excuse.
So they're the recorded apologies for the meeting.
Thank you. That takes us on to our opening prayer, which is going to be given by Rabbi Pete Tobias.
So there is the only opening prayer, the only prayer for a meeting that I know of. Have we got one in Siddur Lev Chadash? I know there's definitely one. We have! Well, I'll have to look it up sometime. However, the only one I know of was when my days when I crossed the line and the border and went over to the Reform. And they have one that says, "May our deliberations not be like those of Korach, may they be like those of Hillel and Shammai." Well, the problem with the deliberations of Korach is seen as a bad guy, but he was actually the first Democrat in the Bible. He was the one who said, "Are we not all holy? Not just you, Moses and Aaron." So I hope that our deliberations will be democratic and Korach-like to that extent, and that we don't end up with the floor opening up and swallowing us by the time they've finished. But as far as the Hillel and Shammai debate is concerned, Hillel was always regarded as the more humane and the more compassionate of the two schools of rabbinic thought. That's the ground opening up. And so may our deliberations lean towards that compassionate understanding and caring for the benefit of our liberal community. Amen.
Thank you, Pete. Takes us on to item 3, which is the minutes of the AGM that was held on the 4th of July in 2017. There are sets around. Richard. Sorry, Richard, there's a microphone there if you want to.
Richard Stevens, East London Essex Liberal Synagogue. We put in some amendments last week to the minutes, and have they been accepted and corrected?
They certainly will be accepted, whether they've been formally corrected and set in front of you. Did you get East London's corrections?
Alex, did you get East London's corrections to the minutes, the AGM minutes? No, there's a look of puzzlement. Were there anything dramatic?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
So I would have thought with the efficiency that Alex normally shows, that if she had received them, she would have acknowledged the receipt of them. So did you not get a receipt?
They went to, let me see now, they went to the Liberal Judaism, and they went on, I think, on the 27th of this month,
Right.
Of June.
Right, I think the Montague Centre was already moved most of its operations down here by then. That is not a reason, but can you just tell us in summary what they were?
Yeah, page 5, this is the second bullet point under 2018. It said, we will appear to
sorry, is this the accounts we're talking about?
come on to the accounts.
No, I was doing the minutes, Richard.
We've only got 3 pages.
We'll look at this. There's only 3 pages of minutes. It's the minutes from the last meeting.
Fair point.
Well, I'm with you. I want to get this meeting over done as quickly as possible, but we've got to go through
That's why we sent it on ahead.
So we're back to the actual minutes of the meeting that was held on the 4th. Is there anyone that was present at the meeting who read these minutes who feels that there's any reason that they're not signed as a true record of what was discussed at that meeting? Sorry, Frank, what was that? Thank you, Frank. Okay, so we quickly move on to any matters arising from these minutes? Thank you. We'll take that as a signed copy that I'll pass on. That immediately takes us to item 4, which is the election of officers for the board. This is where I hand over to our senior civil servant.
Okay, so just to be clear, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, thank you. So just to be clear, we are electing one chair, a deputy chair, a vice chair, an officer for youth, an officer for social justice, and 3 officers without portfolio. I have had, or the Montague Centre has had nominations for most of those posts, and they are as follows, and I'll take them one at a time. To elect Simon Bencher as chair for his second 3-year term. Can you, if you've got a voting card, indicate if you're in favour, then we'll ask you if you're against or you wish to abstain. Do we need to count them all? Right. So we have a copy who is voting. So we're. So thank you. If you put your hands down. Any abstentions? And any against? Thank you. So Simon is therefore duly elected. Ruth Seeger is. Oh no, it's here. Ruth Seeger. Nominated as Deputy Chair. Those in favour? Those against? And abstentions? Okay, thank you. Ruth, you're the new Deputy Chair. Thank you. To elect Karen Newman. Karen may be less known to some of you. Karen Newman is on the Council of the Liberal Jewish Synagogue St John's Wood, was a co-opted member of the board, and is now duly been nominated to be a vice chair. That's Karen Newman. Karen, can you just identify in case everybody doesn't know you? Karen Newman, done splendid work as our Board of Deputies convener. I'm not saying that in any way other than being an impartial returning officer. Karen Newman is the... those in favour? Those against? Abstentions? Thank you. Another new officer, new person to the board, so you may not know her, Jane Drapkin. She is not able to be here this afternoon because she's doing swimming safety training for the swim that she's taking part in, or that she's leading, in Northwood's twinned Czech community in Kolin. So she's not here. She's a member of Northwood and Pinner, and has spent quite a lot of time both abroad and in this country working for NGOs on resilience training and other things. And she has been duly nominated as the Officer for Social Justice. May I have an indication of those in favour? Thank you. And those against? And abstentions? Thank you. Ed Herman, who we've just heard is in Australia, is an existing member of the board, but his term of office is completed and he may stand and has been duly nominated for another term. So to elect Ed Herman as an officer, those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Abstentions? Thank you. And Graham Carpenter is an existing member of the board, has to restand according to the constitutional rules. He's been duly nominated. And those in favour of electing Graham Carpenter? Thank you. Those against? And abstentions? Thank you. Graham is duly elected. We should, as I conclude the election, of course, thank the outgoing officers. Some of whom have served terms of office and can't serve anymore. And you will see in the LJ Today a tribute to them in the next LJ Today.
Thank you, Danny. Can I say personally, thank you very much for the vote of confidence that either you think I'm doing a good job or there's the fact you extend acknowledgement there's nobody else wants to do it. So we immediately go on to the presentation of the reports and the financial statements for the year ending December 2017. I think we'll go straight on to the financial statements. I think you've all got copies of that statement. I'm really pleased to
You
say
should have
actually that
received it. You should have received it at home by email. It's this document. It contains both a general report and the financial figures. We have a few more copies here. Not many. I think probably half a dozen if anybody would like one. Robin would like one at the back. I think Rosita would like one. If Richard and Alison could share.
I want to actually say thank you to Rosie for driving up especially to be here at this meeting. She's going through a busy time at work and at home, and that she hasn't been able to join us, but she has made a point of being here now. So Danny's going to present.
Okay, so I'm going to present this report as the report of both the Chief Executive and, as it were, of the Board, because that will save us one item on the agenda, and I don't know much what I would say if it were to be separated. But quite clearly, this is a comprehensive report of the year 2017, and it contains, as you will see, a written record of our major activities and hints at things we would be hoping to do in the coming year, and presents all of the financial figures that are required by the Charity Commission. The bottom line being that we operated at a surplus, and that has enabled us, as we promised, as the Board required, and as we promised at the last annual general meeting, to begin to build some reserves. The simple question is, it is not right and proper for an organisation that employs the number of staff we employ and carries out the activities that we carry out to have had no reserves. That has been necessary for all sorts of reasons, but it is not an appropriate way to run an organisation, and so it is the intention that we should be building up over the next 10 years some £300,000 to £400,000 of reserves at £25,000 a year, so that were something to happen, we would be in a position to meet all our legal and other financial responsibilities. I think since the report is so comprehensive, that's all I really want to say, unless you wish to ask further questions about the activities, in which case I'll try and respond, or the figures, in which case I might look to the Treasurer to respond, who, of course, has a better grip of these details. So we're very happy to take questions. They are, of course, presented to you. They don't require your approval. They have been approved by the Trustee Board, which, as far as the Charity Commission is concerned, is responsible for the activities of the organisation. But because of the nature of our family style, we would like, if you like, at our family breakfast or lunch, which is our biennial, to ask you to see them and have the opportunity to ask any questions. Jane.
Thank you. I haven't had the opportunity to read this through in depth, so forgive me if the question is answered. But can I have reassurance that LJ is fully compliant with GDPR given the recent change in the law?
The answer is, of course, that technically falls outside of last year's. The difficulty we have is all of us have to speak on last year's events, which already happened and closed effectively. But the answer to your question, since the legislation came in on the 25th of May this year, is that yes, we are, and I pay tribute to Shelley, who's been running through all of this legislation in a very calm, non-panic-driven way, because that's in fact what the Commissioner requires of us, to be sensible and proportionate, and I think Shelley's response has been both proportionate and responsible.
No, I think that's great.
For those of you wading through the accounts at the moment, it might be helpful if I just draw your attention to some sort of real key figures. I think the report at the front is definitely worth reading. As Danny said, it provides an awful lot of information about what took place in 2017 and how that's fed into sort of our strategy and our plans for 2018. From a numbers perspective, I think the key thing, and I don't know if you could just flip onto the first slide. So there are sort of a couple of key headlines that I think are really important. The first is that we did make a surplus, as Danny said. This is very difficult in an environment, in an organisation where the key aim is to break even, but obviously this never happens year on year. The fact that we made a surplus of 31,000 this year has really helped our reserves position and help us achieve our goal with that. Our total income was up by about 180k this year, and in relation to that, our expenditure only went up by about 98. So a lot of our income and expenditure accounts are linked. If we have more money come in for youth activities, we tend to have more money going out for youth activities because it's about the number of people involved in them. I can, sorry. I'm in my work voice, sorry, I'll come back into my weekend voice. Through the fundraising work that Charlie has been leading on, we've seen an excellent start to that, and our sort of donations income, if you like, is up by approximately £50,000 this year. So again, a really good start to our fundraising work. And can I have that one? Sorry, I'm going to move. And I've actually pulled together a pie chart here, which I don't know if you can see particularly well. Part of the reason for our focus on fundraising going forward, also one of the reasons is, for those of you who can see here, our income is made up of several elements, and at the moment, approximately 30% of that is based on our cemetery scheme. So that sort of 30% is reliant on our cemetery scheme. A big part of it is non-member funerals. So part of our aim is to become less reliant on that and more reliant on other elements of income, fundraising being one of them. So this just gives you a very quick overview of where our income comes from. Conversely, the next slide just shows you approximately sort of where our expenditure goes. Got it. We try with technology. I'm not sure it was worth it. There we go. Again, just so you can see, this is where we spend the money that we receive in. So 26% of it is on youth and Kadima activities, 15% outreach community, life cycle is 22%, support costs are 20%, rabbinic development 5%, grants 11%, and then the governance cost of the organisation is 1%. We will be sending that out again once we send out the final signed accounts. What you've got is like the final draft. Once we've got a signed set of accounts, we will resend, and I will also send these slides around just so that you've got them, because I feel they do provide a quick overview. The only other anomaly that somebody may pick up on in the accounts, or it looks like an anomaly, is we appear to have had a large amount of fixed asset disposals. If you look at the fixed asset note, which is note 12, actually what we did with everything that's gone on at the Montague Centre, with the leak and the flood and all that kind of stuff, we actually took it as an opportunity to tidy up our fixed asset register. So it hasn't altered the underlying figures and the value of what we hold, but what it does mean is we now don't have a long list of items we've owned for a long time that are now worth absolutely zero. So the underlying net value remains the same, but we've actually just tidied up the detail on it. Hopefully that will give you a bit of an overview and a bit more of an understanding of sort of what's in the figures. But if anybody has questions after, I'm happy to take them.
There's a question. Yeah, Ruth.
Yep.
Just checking up with Richard, we realised that the queries that were made were about the trustees' report here rather than the AGM. So if I can so I thought I'd just repeat them. On page 5, under section 1, in 2018 we will, second bullet point, the sentence isn't finished. And
Yeah, so
And
so I'll just explain that. These are draft accounts. They're subject once again to a checking of typo, and we just lost a line of text there.
It's
and it
okay.
will be reinserted.
but he's found them, and he's
Thank
got
you.
one more.
No, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, and the other one is page 6, first bullet point. There's another one.
Thank you.
So I think I'll thank them for their eagle eyes.
Thank you.
There was one further comment, and that was to do with clarifying which biennial it was, whether it's the World Union's Progressive Jewish Biennial or our biennial.
Can you just give us the page?
No, he doesn't give the page, no.
Right.
It's just a comment.
Yeah, we'll just check and make sure it's very clear
Yeah.
whether we're talking about the World Union Progressive Judaism
Yeah, that's all we're
biennial
asking.
or our own biennial. Thank you.
Yeah.
You will receive by email a signed-off copy when we've been through once again both these changes that have just been made reference to and rechecked all the figures. The bottom line will not change, but sometimes things get reallocated by the auditors or by us into another area, and then you will receive a signed copy, signed by the chairman and the treasurer, or signed by the chairman. You'll receive that copy, and you'll see that the bottom figure hasn't changed. So is everybody happy and there are no further questions? You're not required to approve these, but we hope you do approve them, as it were, in your hearts, but you're not, in a legal sense, required to approve them. But I hope that what this document does is begin even better than we've done before, and we no doubt can improve even further, to give an accurate and exciting reflection of what we're seeking to achieve and how we spend the resources which your communities and your members of your community and others donate for our purposes.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Rosie. Thanks for making the trip up here. It was greatly appreciated. That takes me on to the Chairman's report. And as Danny just pointed out, the fact that it's sometimes difficult to remember that, in fact, what I'm reporting on is our actions up until December, which seems like an awful long time ago. And somewhat mistakenly, I spent at least 10 minutes putting this lot together, and it relates much more about what's going on at the moment rather than what was going on up almost a year ago. But in many ways, a lot of it is the same, but in many ways, a lot of it has changed and it's different. So what I wrote was, at the very beginning of my tenure, I announced that it was my determination to change the culture of LJ with a determined drive to have a funding stream that wasn't reliant upon the passing of non-members, and for us to start the slow process of having funds in reserve. And as you've seen with the report that you've just seen, the fact that we've started on that process, and it's so far so good. I'm pleased to say that we've been successful in both areas. It's mainly due to the enthusiasm of Charlie, ably assisted by Tom Rich and all the other staff based at the Montague Centre. I then went on to mention about the concert that was held at the LJS, but then I realised actually that was this year and not last. So that'll be this time next year. I'll be reporting about that.
It was November, Your Honour.
Oh, it was November, was it? Okay, well, thank you. So I'm getting. So yes, the concert we held at the LJS, which obviously was last year. Everyone will remember that. Was our first venture into a fundraiser, and it was most successful, and as well as an enjoyable evening. Charlie's engagement as Director of Strategy and Partnerships 2 years ago has proved to be inspirational, and she has worked and networked. In fact, you only had to be with her, as I was at the recent Jewish Care dinner in the West End, that she engaged with Mark Regev, the Israeli ambassador, and he spoke to her with me sort of like trying to pretend that actually I was part of the conversation, but obviously I wasn't, for about 25-30 minutes. And he brushed aside numerous other people that were trying to get his attention, especially Chief Rabbi Mervis, which is one for the Liberals. I've mentioned on numerous occasions how fortunate we are with the staff that we have working for us at the Montague Centre. They all go well beyond the boundaries that they're employed for. Multitasking is a term that definitely was probably invented to describe them all. And the flood, the devastating flood, I don't know if anyone actually saw it or saw photographs of it, it was total and complete devastation. They dealt with it just brilliantly, and we owe them the biggest debt of gratitude just for their professionalism, their dedication to the work, and the way that they, even at the beginning, not realising exactly what it was that was leaking into the Montague Centre, the fact they were trying to clear it up as well. But then when I quickly was told what it was, I told them to get out of the place. But we are just so grateful for all of them that work so hard and so diligently for LJ. Also, and sort of with running the risk of repetition, is that each time I mention how proud and we are and how grateful we are for the youth workers that we have. The year, what they achieve and how successful they are is just such an enormous boost to us as lay leaders of the movement. The pride that I had I drove down to Kadima, and you only had to see what was going on and the way the kids were attached. The work that they do with European trips, Israel trips and things, we are just truly, truly grateful, and we're truly blessed to have the most amazing youth workers under the guidance of Becca, wherever you are. Is Becca here? She's working. That brings me on to my officers, my fellow officers. Without exception, they have all connected with our communities, attended as many congregational events as possible, attending officers and council meetings at the Montague Centre, and also keeping me in check, constantly telling me that my style of approach is possibly not always the right one. Just as a report, the alliance between us and MRJ, which is still under the chairmanship of Robert Weiner, is still alive and kicking. Carrie, who runs our Israel desk, is tangible evidence of the success of the alliance. It's financed and funded through that. Geoffrey Marks, the chairman of the Reform Movement, and I work well together, and wherever possible and relevant, we make a point of ensuring that there is a unified progressive voice. I then was going to go on to talk about my short period in the chair of the Leo Beck College, which actually predominantly was this year. And then for someone, I recently gave a welcome at the House of Lords to our patrons dinner, and I made the admission, the fact that the only educational certificate I've got is a CSE grade B in domestic science and a grade C in woodwork. So to find myself sitting in the chair of the Leo Beck College, surreal isn't really the word. But that period that I spent in the chair of the college, whether it was last year or this year, it made me realise how critical and an integral part of progressive Jewry in the UK, the Leo Beck College is, and how proud I am that possibly there's just a little mention somewhere in the annuals of the college, the fact that I was co-chair with Geoffrey Marks. Because that certainly can be one of my proudest boasts. The quality of the students and the education that takes place there is just beyond exception, and it's the envy of many colleges and other movements throughout the world. So it was a period of my time sitting at in the helm of LJ that I'm just very grateful for that opportunity. So I might end up repeating all this again when I've realised that I must be reporting on next year, but you know, I have to say I was proud to be there. It's a unique place with a unique culture. Didn't quite get my head round how unique it was, but you know, it's now in the hands of Jill Todd, who I'm sure is going to be an inspirational chair of our college, and it is very much our college. A very large part of our funding and your money goes to the Leo Beck College, and trust me, it's money well spent. Charlie put me under an instructions to keep this report brief, and I was going on to mention the fact that, as you all know, that Danny's been on sabbatical for the last 6 months, but again, I'm going to be telling you that again, this time next year. So pretend you don't know that Danny's not been around for the last 6 months, and that Charlie, Shelley, and the whole of the Montague Centre have just stepped up and to the challenge of proving to the outside world that in fact liberal Judaism has got more than one voice. We've got a very loud voice. In the literal sense, probably actually Charlie's got a louder voice than Danny, but truthfully, they both can shout. But it's given the whole of the Montague Centre and others the opportunity to demonstrate the fact that we can step up, and we are a movement to be reckoned with, and there's more to come. So it leaves me really to say is to thank you. Thank you for the honour of being your chair. It's still a great novelty to me and a great honour whenever I get announced as the chair of the Liberal Movement, a movement that I'm passionate about. So thank you very much.
Well, I've had a very close association during the last year with our chairman, and I would like us to pay a tribute to our chairman. It's not well known, but he had a very difficult year. The difficult year hadn't anything to do with liberal Judaism, but it was a hard year for him. I can testify that he loves liberal Judaism with all his heart, with all his might, all his soul. That has led him to visit most of our congregations during the year. The Talmud has a saying, Livni Meshurat Hadin. If you do something beyond what is expected, you, Simon, have done much more during the last year than could be expected of a chairman. You've gone great strengths as chairman and Liberal Judaism. So all of us would wish you at Liberal Judaism, Michael al Chaim, go from strength to strength.
Thought of that. Danny.
So my report is going to be very brief, and the first thing is, it's a message to my dear friend Gillian Merrin, who was here yesterday. I have the best job in the Jewish community. I am so proud and honoured and delighted to be the professional head of this movement to which I've dedicated my life, and which I was brought up, and which one day you'll bury me free of charge in Edgwarebury, or a cremation, whatever it is. But suffice to say, more seriously, I do want to just put on record my immense pride in working for this wonderful, wonderful movement. And I do want to pay tribute to all of my staff, to the Liberal Judaism staff at the Montague Centre. Whether I'm there or not, they beaver away diligently, as indicated by the chairman, well beyond their expectations. And since we did start planning my sabbatical in 2017, I can say that I knew that Shelley and Charlie would do a great job while I was away, and they certainly have done so. They're of course supported by my board, and I'm grateful for the opportunities my board gives to me, to our rabbis, and particularly to Rabbi Aaron Goldstein, the chair of the Rabbinic Conference, who's here and also been our Rabbinic Conference chair, and of course to all of the communities. The heart of my work is actually in communities. I'm usually with you every fortnight in a different community, at least one, sometimes two or three over Shabbat, and to me that is the essence of what we're doing. The essence of what we're doing is working in partnership to build a better society for us and for those who come after us, whether they're Jewish or not. And so that's my report for this year, and I look forward to presenting the 2018 report sometime during 2019.
While we're in the mutual admiration mode, I will state that having Danny at the helm of LJ is a gift. We all know that he's very driven, passionate about liberal Judaism, and for those of us who try to hang on to his shirt tails to keep up, it's always a challenge. So I'm very grateful that Danny works with us. unless anyone's got any questions directly towards me or Danny or anyone else, this is going to prove to be the shortest AGM. Aaron's hovering, as only Aaron can. So I will conclude that part of the meeting. So thank you very much for attending.
Thank you so much indeed. Charlie, would you just call all of the... actually, Charlie, stay here. Simon, will you just quickly get the rest of the staff in? It would be really helpful to do so. I think probably because of the hot weather and because of the bad travel on Friday, whatever, our numbers are fewer than we might have expected for this stage of the event. And therefore, we've decided to close just a little bit earlier. We will be sending round to you some of the work that the Montague Centre staff had put together for the last session. It's a shame that we're not going to be able to experience that, but it wouldn't be the same with these numbers as it would have been with perhaps double our numbers. What we do want to do to conclude this session, though, is just a couple of things. The first, in a few moments, because the staff will very quietly come in, and everybody else, is to acknowledge them. But just before we do that, I just would like to call on Rabbi Dr. Charles Middleborough from the Learbeck College, just to say one or two very short words.
I wasn't anticipating this until about an hour ago. One of the great things about being here representing Learbeck College is to see our wonderful students in action, but even more so is to see our wonderful alumni in action. And this has been a conference which has shown off the graduates of Learbeck College going back many, many years to great effect. I can take one sort of personal perspective and say that through the good fortune of having started teaching at Learbeck College in 1984, I have actually taught the chief executive of the movement and the director for strategy and other things. I'm also very happy to say that I have taught, and in the case of one of them, ordained the editors of the new prayer book, and that is a really great feeling. I particularly, however, now want to say a very special congratulations to two of my rabbinic colleagues who are here in this room. We usually, and we will continue, to honour graduates of our college who have served for 25 years with a fellowship of the college. So there's no gong coming, but I do want to say on behalf of the college, and I'm sure echo the thoughts of many of you, that it's a wonderful thing that Rabbi Charlie Baginski and Rabbi Richard Jacoby mark 10 years since their ordinations in 2008. And I just wanted to give my and the college's congratulations to both of them for that, and give you the opportunity of thanking them for everything they do, both in their communities and for the movement.
That just leaves one... Sorry, go on, do you want to?
No, go.
Okay, it just leaves me one last thing, and actually is the thing that's going to give me the most pleasure. I think, from my perspective, and for most people that I've spoken to over the last 2-3 days, this has been probably the most successful biennial conference that I've been to. It has just yet again proved that we are constantly on the edge, we're constantly evolving, and we are constantly raising the bar. And I think the fact that this weekend has been so inspirational and so successful is in no small way, in fact it's in a total way, of those that have put in the time and effort over the last 12-15 months in putting this weekend together, under the stewardship of Rabbi Aaron, all the other members of the committee that were here. I'd like you actually to stand up. Jane, I think anyone else here that there's Jane, Debbie Davis, Phyllis, Tamara Joseph. Why am I having to call your names out? You all know who you are. Come on. Gershon. Where's Tom? Tom? Charlie?
Keep standing, Pete.
Can't imagine Pete doing anything very much, can you? Oh, him. Where's Izzy? Izzy? Rabbi Sandra? Okay. Simon Rothstein. Where's Simon? Thank you, Simon. And, I think to just give you a round of applause would seem fairly inadequate, but that's all we can do. All we can do is just to give you our enormous... It's just too easy for us all that are just attendees to presume that these weekends just get put together naturally. It takes so much work and so much planning. Thank you for the time, thank you for the effort, thank you for the inspirational input to put together just the most amazing weekend. Can you imagine how wonderful the next biennial is going to be, because it's going to be even better than this. So thank you to all of you.
Because we're not running it. Is that what you're saying? And then finally, just we've thanked the staff so many times already, but also to thank the staff for all of their work this weekend. They have been working, they haven't been able to attend all the sessions and everything, so just a great thank you to all of the support that you've given us. Also to just acknowledge our fantastic guests that we've had as well. It's been incredible to have Rabbi Danny Friedlander, to have Gillian Meron, to have Samir and Dalia, to have Anna and Reuven coming. It shows the breadth of liberal Judaism and our relationships around the globe as well. So thank you to all of those people. And finally, we can't just leave the Jacobees to have all the honours. I invite my dad, the president of Liberal Judaism, to close this conference with a few thoughts.
Sorry about this, but there you go. So I was asked to give the closing prayer, and very much part of this conference has been about prayer and the prayer book. And so I thought I'd read two short prayers, one from the very first prayer book of our movement, and the words of Dr. Mattock, going back to 1926, and then follow with some words from Shira Chadashah. But this was a prayer some of you of my generation might remember. God of our ancestors, teach us to be worthy of the name of Jew. May no act of ours sully it. May all that we do tend to the honor of our faith and to thy glory, O God. Give us an understanding heart so that we may feel how solemn is the responsibility which rests upon us as members of thy people. Give us strength to serve the Jews' mission, to follow at all times the laws of righteousness, purity, and love, so that we may be a witness before the world to thine everlasting truth. Amen. But then, I suppose, the blessing after this really brilliant conference from this new prayer book. You may know the words, but in a different form. Baruchot aten ba'ir, v'ruchot aten basadeh, Baruchim atem b'tzeitechem, Baruchim atem b'voachem. May you be blessed in the city and enjoy the fields as you go past on this glorious summer day again. May you be blessed when you go out from here, and may you be blessed when you come in to many more exciting functions and gatherings in the future. Amen.
So